Google yesterday announced a major restructuring. Google has now been demoted to a wholly owned subsidiary of a new company called Alphabet. Google co-founder Larry Page will be the CEO of Alphabet. The other co-founder, Sergey Brin, will be president. And Sundar Pichai, no surprise there, has been named CEO of Google. Joe Kleinman is a tech journalist at the BBC. Drew Harwell is a staff writer for The Washington Post. And Ellen Hewitt is a tech reporter for Forbes. Welcome to all three of you.
Hi.
Thanks.
So glad you're all here. Now, let's start with you, Zoe. What other companies besides Google now exist under Alphabet? Can you sort of describe what's under there with Google?
Yeah, well, it turns out that Google has had a finger in an awful lot of pies in recent times. The Google that will remain is going to have Google's core business. So that's things like Maps, like Search, like the Android mobile platform. There's also Google X, which is a sort of development lab. They do quite futuristic things. They started work on the driverless car that we now know about. And they also do things like Project Loon, which was a very ambitious project to connect rural communities to the internet via a network of balloons, quite literally. And that's all going to be part of the umbrella. They're also going to continue to invest. There's an investment arm that puts money into startups like Uber and Periscope, and there's also sort of lots of other bits that they're working on that you wouldn't necessarily think were part of their remit. There's something called Calico, which is looking at longevity and how to basically make us all live longer. Very, very useful. Hasn't really reported anything yet, so it'll be interesting to see, what's going on behind these closed doors.
Yeah, Zoe, thank you for that background. Jumping on over to Drew now. Hey, Drew, when you first heard about this, did you get any sense of the motivation here? What's driving this decision at Google?
Yeah, I think it answers a question that Google has been facing for a long time, which is why is a search engine company investing in driverless cars and anti-aging research? It sort of allows their growing empire to more sophisticatedly be under one umbrella that's not just related to the box you put in questions you have. So I think it made sense from a standpoint of them allowing themselves a greater room for all of their big ambitions, all their big moonshot projects, and still keeping, the Google name, which is still, their chief moneymaker and still the product that everybody across the world uses, still letting that keep its own sort of territory.
Ellen, why did they call it Alphabet? Is there any real meaning behind that name, or are they just a couple of co-founders who grew up watching Sesame Street?
I don't know. I mean, I think they described it as a way to capture this idea that Larry and Sergey have, which is that they'd like to apply the technology that they see available to them to a wide variety of different places. And maybe Alphabet is just sort of a cute way. It's kind of a googly thing. Like, it's a little silly, but it comes with big ambitions behind it. This idea that they would have these letters that could represent, each could represent a different effort that they want to lead to be changing the world using technology that they see available today to fix a wide variety of problems. And like an alphabet is a collection of things. I don't know. It kind of works. It was like a pretty when I first saw it, I was not sure what they were going for, but I think it makes sense. It's a very googly sort of wide spanning name.
Now, Ellen, a follow up for you. They don't even own the Alphabet URL, correct? I mean, aren't there other companies out there called Alphabet?
Yeah, actually, alphabet.com apparently belongs to a subsidiary or a related company to BMW, and I guess they have no plans to sell it. Google apparently has no plans to buy it. They own abc.xyz, and that's their URL. They made sort of a joke URL at huli.xyz, which is a reference to the HBO show Silicon Valley. Huli is the not very cleverly misnamed Google analogy or analog in the Silicon Valley show, and then Microsoft already made abc.wtf redirects to Bing. I imagine if they've already picked abc.xyz, they're probably going to stick with it, and we'll just get used to it.
Yeah, it's kind of a cool sort of URL. And it's hard to come along these days, as Google is now finding out, with a very basic word from the English language and find the URL and all that stuff for it. Maybe they can just buy those things eventually. So Zoe, some of these companies, as you pointed out, are thriving businesses. Google obviously is a thriving, profitable business, and then some of these others are serious moonshots. I mean, they got a drone company, they have, they have a health company, and so on. Are these companies expected to turn a profit? I mean, and this whole thing is being compared with Berkshire Hathaway as the way that it's structured as this umbrella organization. But what will Wall Street expect from the moonshot companies? Will they, and also where will they get their funding? How does this work exactly?
Well, I mean, we're going to find out over the coming weeks exactly how Alphabet intends to operate. But what Larry Page has said is that he thinks this is going to make the separate parts of Google more accountable and more open. So in a way, we'll be able to see that way where the money's coming in. We already know, let's be honest, that the company that will be Google is sort of the cash cow at the moment. YouTube is a big revenue generator for them. Android is an enormous revenue generator. So we know that there's money there. And we also know that money is used by Google to fund the less profitable and, as you say, the more sort of moonshot operations. So it will be interesting to see when they start filing their profits, because these entities are going to be far more separated. We might find that we actually have more information about how the company's running and how profitable it is. They are already able, though, to do some good deals. Novartis, which is one of the pharmaceutical giants, is working with one of Google's sort of offshoots on a smart contact lens that is going to be able to read glucose levels in people who have diabetes and communicate that information with a smartphone. Now, that's a big deal, and that would have been a financially good incentive, I imagine, for Google to carry on doing that. So I think we will begin to see more clearly than we do now where the money's coming from and where it goes.
Yeah, a follow-up on that, jumping over to Drew. Drew, I'd love your perspective on the fact that, is there a potential downside here? And what I mean by that is Google CFO has promised more visibility to Wall Street, more visibility to customers in terms of what's going on in the company. But does that mean Google may actually wind up breaking out some financials for these startups, show a whole bunch of red ink, and then you got Wall Street screaming about products and services that are losing money that they want killed?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, Zoe made some great points in that Larry and Sergey have promised a greater level of transparency, and that's important because when you're looking at moonshots, the thing about projects like these, like glucose measuring, contact lenses, and balloons that give internet to everyone, is they cost a lot of money, but they can be revolutionary if they work right. So in the meantime, investors who are looking on the day-to-day and wanting financial results to happen more quickly than innovators can often provide, they're going to be maybe kind of demanding about the performance of those projects, especially when compared to something like Google, which is constantly a cash cow that's providing just gobs and gobs of money through advertising. So, that transparency is something that I think and probably hope that the Google and Alphabet folks have considered and have considered for the months that they've been planning, the birth of Alphabet. But it's going to take some time before we really realize how this umbrella corporation is going to work, how this fiefdom of many different business models and competing investments will really fare on the market.
Ellen, Sundar Pichai is an interesting character. He's got a serious rags to riches story. He is very well respected in the industry and within Google, but he's boring as a stick. I mean, I've seen him speak many, many times. He's got no personality whatsoever. Do you think he's the right kind of person to run Google?
I think he's exactly the right kind of person to run Google. From what I've heard from a lot of people who work there and used to work there, he's very well respected within the company, within sort of the engineering core, which is important. And I think maybe most importantly, he apparently doesn't have the same drive to pursue these crazy moonshots like Larry and Sergey does, and has, I think, a real passion for Google products, for making them really excellent, for having them be serving the user the way that he envisions, in a way that makes sense to humans, and that works perfectly every time. And if that's what Google, the now smaller wholly owned company, is going to be focusing on, then I think Sundar is the right person. I think no one was surprised by the announcement. In fact, since October, when he was made product czar, chief of product under Larry, he's basically been doing this job, just hasn't been named CEO. So to me, it makes a ton of sense. I think if it had been anyone else, it would have been a huge story. As it is, yeah, he is, I think, people talk about his youth growing up, without electronics until he was like 12. He grew up in Chennai, India, and like now he's here. And I think, he deserves the CEO role, and I think he's going to do a great job.
And Ellen, just a follow up on that. I've heard a lot of speculation that this move has been in the works for up to 4 years, which makes me, well, first of all, it clarifies why they've been throwing all these different businesses under Sundar Pichai. It didn't make sense until now. They were essentially building him up and grooming him to essentially become the CEO of Google, and clearly the things that they were putting under him are all still under the Google umbrella, and so. This structure and so on what does this mean for Sergey Brin himself? He's the president of an organization that oversees other organizations. Do you have any sense of what Sergey Brin is going to be doing with his time? I mean, who knows what he's doing with his time now? But what is he going to be doing that's different? Do you think as a president? What does a president of an umbrella company do?
I don't know. I mean, I think in the past, Sergey has sort of had the luxury to focus, on certain projects that Google and now Alphabet has been involved in that he's found personally interesting. There was a period of time when he was really into Google Glass and wearing Google Glass all the time. I think what Larry and Sergey want from this structure is the freedom and sort of this autonomy for themselves to be able to explore the things that they want to do, to have freedom to dip their hands in a bunch of stuff without worrying about what's going on at Google, the cash cow. And I think, yeah, exactly, you're right. They've been working toward this structure for a long time. Sundar has been sort of being groomed to be CEO. He did a bunch of, he did a big exclusive interview with Forbes, in November, and he's been put out in the media to become this person that people are familiar with, this name that people see as the head of Google. And in the meantime, when Google has been acquiring other companies like Nest, they've been offering people like Tony Fadell lots of autonomy, promising them like you're going to be this company that's you're under Google, but it's really going to be your own company. And I think that's a way that they're going to be able to do even more strongly now with Alphabet. Say like, come join us and be part of the Alphabet family, rather than worrying, having founders worry about being sort of absorbed by Google and being lost inside.
Yeah, and in the piece on Sundar Pichai in Forbes was really great, and the photos were taken by the same photographer who did my son's wedding. So that was really fun to see. Little small world up here in the general Bay Area.